Hello, and thank you for joining us once again at Nearsoft's Dojo Live. This is our second episode of 2017, and we're happy to have you with us. My name is Kim Lantis. I'm part of the internal content coordinator here at Nearsoft. Joining me today are my teammates, Carlos Ponce from our sales and marketing team. Hey, Carlos.
Hello.
And then Luis Ortiz joining us from Nearsoft Labs. Hey, Luis.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you. So both of them are actually in our Mexico City office. I'm here at our Hermosillo office. Today's topic is all about making remote teams work through collaboration, something that I know all of you Nearsoftians watching are going to be very interested in, since we're three offices all across Mexico, and then some people also who we lovingly refer to as our forever remotes. So stay tuned. And then, of course, here to help us improve our remote collaboration is our special guest, Lissette Sutherland. Hi, Lissette.
Excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Lissette, she is joining us from Collaboration Superpowers, and she's also the creator of a workshop called Work Together Anywhere. And so thank you for joining us, Lissette. So Lissette, working remotely is more and more common, especially I think in the software and tech industry, but I don't think it's limited to that. So share with us what it is that you've learned and how and what we can do to improve that experience.
Oh man, so let me share my screen. So what I've done before I share my screen, what I've done is I've been in the process of writing a book for the last 3 years and interviewing people in companies who are working remotely to get their best practices and tips for how to do that. And as I was writing the book, I thought, oh my gosh, I have a treasure trove of information here. As I collated everybody's answers and all their interviews, and I decided to make it into a workshop. And so the Work Together Anywhere workshop is that culmination of all the tips and best practices that I've collected while writing the book. And what I thought I'd do today is put together a short, I don't want to say presentation because it's not going to quite be a presentation, but I put together all of my favorite tips and tricks for remote working, what I think is really cool, what people should know about. And I wanted to share that with you guys today. So I hope that people who are listening have a way of taking notes, because what I would love, the outcome that I would really love after this is that you get a handful of things that you can try on your remote teams tomorrow when you go back to work, or even this afternoon. For me, it's evening, so I'm already thinking nighttime, but for where you guys are, it's lunchtime. So when you, after lunch today, yeah, you guys are just getting started. After lunch today, try out some of these tips that I'm about to show you.
Nice. So you heard her,
that
folks.
Was my plan.
Pen, paper. You can also come back and watch this live episode from our website at any time you want. And then if you would like, throughout our time today, go ahead and send a tweet with any questions you might have at DojoLIVE. That's the handle. So Lissette, cool. Oh, look at that. She's got some technology going on for us. We love that.
Yeah. So the first, I'm a total gadget person, a total tech person. So the first piece of technology that you're seeing is a technology called Personify, and it's a 3D camera that projects me onto my monitor, whatever it is behind me. So I can play Vanna White, and I can show you guys what you're seeing on the screen, because I feel that video, and this will come out in this presentation, I feel that video is so important that we should be using it wherever we can. And I know it's not appropriate in every situation, but in many situations it is appropriate, and it's especially appropriate when you're giving online presentations or trainings, for example. So this 3D camera is one of my favorite tools. You can see it's not perfect, it's a little bit, it's not totally smooth, but we're in the beginning phases of all these technologies, and it's only getting better from here.
But it's great, yeah.
Totally fun to do this. So let's go through. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to describe my favorite tips for how do we work online as if we were in the office together, and stop and interrupt me at any time to ask questions, because I tend to get really enthusiastic, as you can tell, about this stuff, and I might just go on and on. So feel free to interrupt at any time.
No, we like enthusiasm, and I'm a good interrupter. So my husband says it drives him crazy, but
no, great, perfect for me, perfect for me. So I wanted to start with, like, how do we simulate the office online? How do we, because it's so nice when you can just lean over and say, like, hey, Carlos, how's that report going? How do we do that when we're online? And there's a number of different ways to do that. So we're going to start there. The first way to do that, like I said, is by using video. So many people say, how do I get that sense of team? How do I get camaraderie when I'm online? And my answer to that is turn the video on so that you can see each other. As humans, we're programmed to connect visually. So when we don't have that, for instance, I can actually show you a perfect example of that, I think. I'm going to now hide my avatar. You can immediately, when I hide this avatar, feel a drop in engagement when you're just looking at the slide. You're just hearing a voice. And when I turn it back on again, you can see. So that's how important video is. It's a pretty intense experiment. This tool that you're seeing now, this is Zoom. This is one of my favorite video conferencing tools. You can have up to 50 people on a video call at the same time. The quality is excellent, screen sharing, annotation, recording, all the things that you'd want. This is my absolute right now favorite video conferencing tool on the market. And if you sign up, tell them I sent you, because I like the bonus points and the kudos that the company gives me. I don't get any money, or for any of these tools, I get no money from any of the companies. I'm just a slavish fangirl. Zoom is by far the best.
Okay.
Now, if you want to get fancier, if you want to actually work together online, then you can try a virtual office. And that's what this is that you're seeing on the screen. You're actually looking down into an office. Each one of those squares represents an office. And each one of these little dots that you see in the office, these represent people that are in the rooms with you. You can only see and hear the people that are in the same room that you're in. But if you double click, you can go to another room. So this actually gives you a visual representation of where people are working in the company, who's talking to who, and what's going on. So this is a tool called Sococo.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the name of the tool?
Sococo, and I think it's...
Oh, I see it. There. Good.
There you go.
Vanna White. So just to make sure that I'm understanding Sococo correctly, like this gives you the feel that you have at any moment the liberty to pop in essentially and talk with anyone as you would in an office, but then you can also have like a private meeting in this conference room or whatever else and kind of get that feel.
Exactly. So, for instance, I use this tool with a group of mine, and we call it virtual co-working. Because, for instance, I'm very extrovert, and I love to be around people, but I love my home office more than I love to be around people, because I've got my electric sit-stand desk, and I've got my stereo, the neighbor cat who comes over to visit, but I still want to work with people. So I actually every day spend my afternoons in Sococo with people from all over the world, and we're working. Sometimes we're working and we're just hanging out together in the central room. I've got my own corner office that I called writing, please do not disturb, because when I'm writing my book, I want to just be writing and I don't want people to disturb me. So they know that when I'm in my office that, hands off, like don't bother her now. And that when I feel like talking,
you could go to the water cooler.
Exactly. You could literally bump into somebody at the water cooler online with this tool. And
that's really fun. It reminds me of like Harry Potter's Marauders map or something.
That's
totally.
I've heard that's a tool that
him up to no good.
I've seen that tool that you use it for that remote work sessions, and I was wondering about it. It looks pretty good. So let's say you're in your office, in your corner office where you don't want to be bothered. You still have your camera on. You're still broadcasting, but nobody can see it until they are in your room.
Exactly. I can even turn my camera off and I just have the sound on. So I know that, for instance, if I'm in an open office and my sound is on and somebody comes in, I can hear them coming in, but they can't see or hear me until I actually turn my video and sound on. So you can have a number of different configurations. You could just have your video on and then but nobody can see you unless they're in the office with you. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So there's this virtual knock knock.
There is literally, you can literally virtually knock on people's doors. There is that function in this virtual office. You just knock and then come in. So it gives you a nice visual representation of where people are working. And I think that's pretty exciting. So if anybody wants to join our virtual co-working group, it's free for anybody that would like to do it. We're there most days. Just come in and join us. Just bring your own projects. Sometimes it's nice to just bounce ideas off people. Like, oh, I'm really struggling with the ending to this blog post. Can somebody help me out? Or, you just want to bounce an idea. So that's a great advantage of a virtual co-working group like that.
So Coco is the name of your virtual group, or that's the name of the?
That's the name of the company.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the name of the company. Okay. Yeah, and again, tell them I sent you.
Okay.
I like the bonus points. So this is something that's called, so video is becoming more and more prevalent, of course. This is something called InfoPresence. I'm covering up the name again. This is InfoPresence. But as you can see, we are starting to simulate what it's like to sit across the table from each other, even when we're virtual. Things like Google Hangouts go a long way. You know, Zoom goes a long way. It's the video that actually creates the connection. But more and more, I mean, we will soon be moving into the virtual reality space, and probably not for the next 5 years. Most people are still struggling with basic online conferences, but keep your eye on virtual reality, because in the next few years, that is absolutely the way that things are going to go, in my opinion. We'll see if my prediction comes true in the next few years.
All right,
but
cool.
The next big thing, which I really love, you know, it's a step maybe not as weird or maybe as weird as virtual reality, but I'm a big fan of these telepresence robots. In fact, I have one. I'm here. I don't know if it's a project. So this is what it looks like. And what it allows you to do is you can beam in from anywhere, and then you can move yourself from side to side or up and down. So whereas with Skype or with Hangouts, you just beam in and you're sitting on somebody's monitor, this actually gives you movement. And movement gives you a real physical presence in the room, because all of a sudden you're turning side to side and it humanizes you. So this kind of tool is perfect if you are a team and you've got that one remote employee. So everybody's in the office together and the one person's calling in. You could actually have them sit at the table with you if they beam into this, and they can move and see who's talking and nod up and down, and it makes it more human. So I mean, I think that's really exciting technology.
Yeah.
So like the robot screen follows and tracks where you would naturally want to look and nods its head if you're...
You have to do it yourself manually using the arrow keys on your keyboard, but it doesn't track it automatically.
Yeah. We do have a beam at the Hermosillo office, and I've tried it. And it's actually pretty cool because you can, it's not only turning, but you can drive it. And it's really, really great. And, you know, in a meeting, it goes a long way, because you know, you can all be seated, and the beam, it's just at the same level as you are, instead of just being on a computer on the corner there, and you can see everybody. So it's pretty cool technology. Yeah, telepresence, I think it's going to take a big role in remote teams.
I hope so. Right now, people still think it's really weird, but I think I'm hoping to open people's eyes to how powerful some of this technology is. At first, people go, oh, robots. And I think, no, just try it. I mean, one of these Kubies is maybe $500 US. So that is definitely something that a company, if you've got that one remote person or even just a couple, get a couple of Kubies and just check it out, because you will be amazed at how much difference that movement makes. Amazed. I mean, the picture that you're seeing here on this screen, this is my friend Kristen in the orange beam, and she's in Canada, and that's myself in the red beam, and I'm in the Netherlands. We're attending a conference together in Las Vegas, and we went to talks together. We went to different booths. We had virtual tea. I mean, think of the possibilities. If you can just expand on that. The only thing you can't do is you need help with elevators, and you can't take the stairs, of course. So there's all these.
Come on, sorry, go ahead.
So you're really like, excuse me, sir, in the orange shirt, could you please push the up button?
Exactly.
I know.
And
that's a
there's
great
whole
one.
new ways of greeting each other, exactly, because of course you can't shake hands in a Kubi, but you can fist bump. So when you're in a robot or online, you can now fist bump, and that's a 2D way of saying hello.
Yeah. I was gonna say, this makes sense for teams that most of the teams are in one location or in one office, and then it's a few of them that are remote. Because obviously, let's say like the software you shared, Personify or Sococo, InfoPresence, that's for like larger teams who are all remote. You can up to 50 people in different places can log in. It
or
wouldn't
someone
make sense.
like Nearsoft, where we're in 3 different offices.
Yeah. But my point is, it wouldn't make sense to have an office filled with 50 beams, right? 50,
exactly.
It's just for like when there's a few.
Although the Suitable Technology office, who they are the creators of the beam, their office is half robots and half in the flesh.
Wow.
They call it. So I mean, you know, and it feels, once you get used to it, it feels very human and natural. It is kind of amazing how quickly. In the beginning, it's a little bit creepy, only when it's not somebody you know.
Yeah.
But it's when it's somebody that you know in these machines, it's not creepy at all. It feels familiar somehow.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to try it out. I think I have a couple of pictures. Oh yeah, here's the beam office. So you can see it's half beam, half in the flesh. This is a picture from their office.
Yeah.
And here's a picture of the Kubi. This was a guy who was working at home because his kids were sick. And so he put the Kubi in his office, and then people could just come to his office as if he were there, but he's actually at home with his sick kids. So,
Nice.
I mean, the possibilities are cool. So keep your eye on virtual reality. And of course, all of these technologies open up whole new ways of living for people, right? We've all heard, or most of us have heard of digital nomads, of course. This is Piero Tofanin. He is a digital nomad from Italy, and he spent 2 years traveling in the US in a camper van, coding to pay for his expenses, working wherever he had Wi-Fi. So looks like a pretty luxurious lifestyle. There is a lot more to it. It's not that easy to be a digital nomad. It looks like a luxury, but there's a lot of work that goes behind it. You can listen to his interview to hear all about that, but you can see the possibilities that it opens up. There's another interview story that I wanted to point out that I loved, and that was my interview with a guy named Yegor Bugayenko, probably one of my favorite interviews that I've done. He runs a company of over 200 freelancers that have worked for him for years and years, whom he's never met or spoken to. So what they've done is they break down all of their tasks into very small, like 30-minute tasks or an hour tasks. And the freelancers in this company can take on as much or as little work as they want. They get paid as they complete the task. And if they don't complete the task, they don't get paid. And they don't have meetings. They don't talk to each other. They do everything through a ticketing system. He sometimes doesn't even know their names. He only knows them by their email address and their GitHub handles. So it's an extreme example. Like, most of us like being on a team, and we like to hang out with our colleagues, and that sense of team is really fun, but it does go to show that what's possible. So you don't have to have that video and sense of team and all this thing we talk about. Like, he's doing extreme results-oriented working. If you get the work done, you get paid. If you don't get it done, you don't get paid. It's as simple as that.
Right. I think it's functional. Like you said, it's something, there's different ways for everyone. And I appreciate that you brought out this particular option, which I think for a company like Nearsoft, it's not something that we would go for. We're very much toward the humanity, the being personal, teamwork. I mean, teamwork, for example, is a very, very huge part of our values. But if that's not the case, and that's not something that one person is interested in or a company is interested in, there's other ways to go about it. And I like that, the idea that it can be simplified.
I like that there's options for people that like different things. For those of us that like working on a team and like working together, we have that option. And for those of us who really just want to do the work and we don't want to be bothered with all the, what Yegor calls the team building crap, he literally says, we have that option also. And I think that it's not about like, oh, we should all work remotely. We can work from home. We can work on the road. I think for me, what it's all about is I want to be able to work where I'm most productive. If that's in the office with my colleagues, that's in the office with my colleagues. If that's from home, if it's from the road, I want to be able to be in the best place that I can be for the task that needs to get done. And I think that that's the exciting part of remote working.
Yeah, it can totally just be about the task, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's taking efficiency to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I mean, it's extreme. It's extreme. Most people are like, where did you find this guy? He's totally bizarre. But I just like that he has the other side of the argument. I like that it's possible.
Exactly, and he finds people that it works for them.
Yeah, like not everybody's that extroverted, person, and it's cool that you can use technology and remote to find a job and make an income that suits your personal needs. So I like that.
Yeah.
If I may, I'd like to jump into with a quick question, but before I do that, I'd like to remind the audience that you can send us your questions right here. This is my personal, highly digital technical tool, right? And just
it's three-dimensional.
It's three-dimensional, yes. Actually, and it's cheap. You can get them almost for free. So it's just send us your questions at DojoLIVE right here on Twitter. And you said, if I may, I'd like to ask you a question real quick. You mentioned something that I thought that it definitely hit a spot right there. It's about the team building part. How can we go about team building with these technologies? I mean, how can we our ties as teams now that we're using tools like this that are digital in nature for remote work? Where does the team building part fit in with the remote work? How do we go about that from your standpoint?
I've got a number of examples in a bit that I'll show, but just to say, I think the most important thing about team building, one, is to be able to see each other in whatever form that takes. So visually, that helps for sure. That will be the number one thing to build the team. The other thing is you have to be deliberate about building the team. When we're together in an office, we can see when somebody comes in tired, when they've been up late, and their kids are sick, or maybe they're going through a divorce, or we can see what's happening with them. But when we're online, we can't really see that because it's out of sight, out of mind, and we're all sort of in our own worlds. And what I mean by being deliberate is you have to set up a cadence for meeting each other, and you have to actually set up a time for just hanging out. And most teams don't do that. So we set up our meetings, we get in, we follow the agenda, we get out, we do our work, and you set up another meeting if you want to talk to them again. But with remote teams, what I always recommend is set up a time every week, just like half an hour every week, where you just get together and hang out. And you don't have to be there. It's whoever's around, whoever is interested, they show up, and you just have this time for hanging out. And like the only rule should be no talk about work. Like just hanging out. And in the beginning, it's a little bit awkward, right? Because you're just like, well, now what do we do? Who's going to start the conversation? But over time, you do get used to it, and you start to, somebody will just say, hey, you're training for a triathlon. Oh, okay. Like what shoes do you have? And you start to it becomes a natural way of talking when you're doing that. So one is be deliberate and set up those regular times for people to get together, because one of the things that gets lost is we talk a lot online through chat and through email. And what that doesn't allow for is spontaneity. And spontaneity is an important part of good communication. We need some spontaneity in order for communication to sort of be whole, for it to be a complete thing. So in remote teams, you have to build that spontaneity into your processes. So I think if you...
I'm sorry. One of the groups, in yourself, we have lots of different chats and things that are not work related at all. You're all team members, but like, for example, we have I'm in one that's just called cat lovers. And those of us who happen to love cats, which in Mexico is not very common, by the way, you've just come across a funny video or a meme or whatever, or can you believe what my butthole cat did today or whatever? And it's spontaneous and it's fun.
I guess I would be the dog team.
We can make one. All right, everybody. I'm expecting somebody to add Luis and I to a dog lovers Skype chat. Go.
There you go.
We have a question from the audience. This question is from Chris Slamp. Thank you, Chris, for your question. And he's asking, what was the name of the 3D camera technology?
Personify. Personify.com. You can find the 3D camera there.
Personify.com. All right, thank you, Lissette. There you have it, Chris. Thank you for your question. Okay.
Yeah, and anybody doing online trainings or webinars, I think it's a must. It's a must. It's so easy. It's a couple $100 and then you've got a great camera.
Cool. Yeah. So let's see. What else do you have in store for us? You're about building camaraderie.
Yeah, I know. So I'll go through. So I wanted to give... Oh, go ahead. Oh.
I just wanted to take a minute for the biggest takeaway from that last slide, I think, is to be deliberate about what you want to do. I kind of connected with Nearsoft's culture. Everybody see us from outside and they say, wow, this is a very relaxed company. It's very fun. You guys are always having fun. And they don't realize that, that takes work. You have to be open about it. And that's what you have. You need to make it open and clear for everybody in your team that that's how things are going to be done. And it's not something that just happens.
Exactly.
And I see it with culture. So I think remote working, it's part of the culture because everybody's in different places.
Yeah, and it's also
I just want to say that.
It's not just a manager's job to create the culture. There's a quote that Jürgen Appelow has that says, management is too important to leave to the managers. And I think, with a remote team, it's everybody's job to be proactive and to be a participant. And if you leave it to just one person to always organize the things and to always remember the birthdays, it's going to fall through the cracks. So if everybody has to take a step and be a part of the team on a remote team. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. That's the downside, is if you want to be disconnected and then you go remote, you're going to be disconnected. You have to make an effort to connect.
Right.
That's the difference. So
Yeah,
this slide that I'm
definitely.
showing here, I wanted to give an example of sort of what I think is so exciting about remote working in general in terms of like what it can offer us, which is those of us who are passionate about a particular topic or subject, we don't have to wait for anybody to give us permission to do anything. We can now gather people from anywhere in the world and move mountains. And this slide, I interviewed a company called R-Loop, and they entered the SpaceX competition to build the Hyperloop, which is a transportation system that can take you from San Francisco to Los Angeles in 30 minutes, and it's normally a 7-hour drive. So it like shoots you through this gravity, it's a pod that shoots through a gravity-free tube in 30 minutes to make that
Wait,
enormous
this
journey.
is in progress, or this actually exists now?
This actually, it's in progress. They had a competition to see who could build the hyperpod. So SpaceX said, okay, we want to take in all the competitors to build a hyperpod. They had 1,800 people submit proposals. One of those 1,800 was R-Loop. They met on Reddit. So I think lots of people will know what Reddit is. It's like a giant online forum. It's one of the most popular websites in the world. It's hard to describe what Reddit is. It's like real life, but online. So in a weird way. But they met on a subreddit, so it's a subforum called the Hyperloop Summit. This is all just people interested in the Hyperloop. And one guy said, let's submit a proposal for this competition for SpaceX. They had over 400 volunteers from all over the world. Volunteers self-organized, and they made it to one of the top 6 finalists in the competition. All online, all remote, never having met anybody before, all self-organized and not paid. So when people say, can you work remotely? Or they say, oh, you can't work remotely, you can't really do it, it's not as effective. And I say, yes, it is, because if you want to do it, you can do it. And remote working allows those of us who want to do these things to be able to do these things. I think it's super exciting. So, okay, so that's my R-Loop.
Really cool.
Okay. But the way that we do it, since when we work remotely, everybody has a different style of working. So I think one of the biggest things that I say to do, so now that we've simulated the office and we've got our videos working, we want to create a team agreement for how to work together, because otherwise you've got like me, and I like to wake up a little bit later in the morning, and I like to go running in the afternoon, but maybe my team needs me during those times. So how do we work together in a way that's efficient and productive for everybody? And I think a team agreement where you simply outline what are your core hours going to be? Where are we going to store the files? How are we going to communicate? Is it, like, for example, I had this one woman that I worked with who used email like an instant messaging system. So you would just get one email after another, with like, she would just have a thought, hit enter, have another thought, hit enter, and keep going. You get this like barrage of emails. Not a big deal. We all know how to deal with emails, right? We can just delete the emails that don't make sense and keep going. But what it does is it makes you want to stop talking to that person, because you're going to get this email barrage when you ask a question. And so on a remote team, that's death. Like when you want to stop talking to your colleagues, you can't have that on a remote team. So if we have a team agreement, like, okay, we're going to use instant messaging, or we're going to use Slack for our communication, at least everybody knows what's going on. So it's basically, you're just outlining your ways of working. How are we working together? And you're going to have so many misunderstandings on a remote team anyway. It's good to just get the basics out of the way. So that's the standard. Oh, and here's my screen with these are a variety of different remote offices that people have. And you can see some people love order, like this. This is Hassan Osman from Cisco Systems. That's his office. You could like
My kind of
love
office.
it. Yeah, totally. And then on the other side, my camera cuts off. But all the way on the other side is the graphic designer for Collaboration Superpowers. He's an old punk rocker, and he's got records all over the place. And they saw pictures of each other's offices, and they each had the same reaction, which was, how can you work like that? So, which I thought was hilarious. So,
And they're like, good thing we're working remotely.
Totally. Hassan would go crazy in Alfred's office. So yeah, so when we have these ways of working, we can have these different styles, but still come together online as a productive team. So just take the time. It takes about an hour to get a team agreement in place. I've got a PDF if people are interested. If you want to create your own team agreement, I've put together a PDF of just questions you can ask your team, how to get started. And as you can see, after you've sort of done this brainstorming session, you just turn it into a document where people can see it. Now, it's a living document. Your ways of working, it's not dogma. It's not set in stone. And your ways of working will change over time. They should change over time. As you get new people on the team, as you try new tools, you're going to want to update it regularly.
Very good.
But just have the basics outlined.
Is this like a framework you did with all the teams that you interviewed?
This is a framework. I stole this from Phil Montero of the Anywhere office. I stole it with permission, by the way, so it's not real stealing. But
Okay.
it doesn't, there's a number of different frameworks you could use. This is the ICC workflow where you outline the information, the communication, and the collaboration that you're going to have with each other. It doesn't matter which framework you use. As long as you have a team agreement of some sort in place, it will go a long way.
And
And
do you
I
find
think it's... Oh, go ahead, Luis. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Do you find that this frameworks work better for one industry in particular or another? Because I know, us working in a software development company, it's just a more suitable industry for remote work, right? As you said, this guy that was traveling across the US, it's easier to just hop in any Wi-Fi and start coding. It's not the same in any other industry. So you think that's something that works for across industries, or?
So, the software industry is for sure more, it's better for the software industry than other industries. But there's lots of people. There's bloggers, there's accountants, there's designers, all kinds of people that don't need to be in a particular place. I mean, most illustrators, yeah. And in fact, the weird thing is most of the people that are taking the Work Together Anywhere workshop right now are bankers, which they're all from the banking industry, which I found totally interesting. But I think what's happening is they're realizing that I think what's happening is startups are coming and they're taking slivers of the banking industry away a little bit at a time, and they're moving really fast and they're doing really cool things, and the banking industry can't move fast enough.
Yeah.
And they're starting to see these kids working out of their garage, taking pieces of the business away, and so they're wanting to, like, how do we do this too? How do we move quickly too?
Great.
Interesting. No, but I like this step a lot. I think it's one of those things where this 1 to couple hours at the start is going to save you a lot of headache in the long term. So it's definitely not a waste of time.
No, for sure not. You will always discover something like, oh, I didn't know you used that tool that way. I had a woman who, or a colleague who, when she saw my status on Slack, if she saw that it was active, then she would expect a response immediately. But what she didn't realize is I just had Slack open all day, but I wasn't always there. So my status said I was active. And so she would get annoyed if somebody didn't respond immediately. And we had to she was like, oh, I didn't realize you just kept it open in your browser. Like, these are the little things you discover that a team agreement will really smooth things out.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. Once somebody's hired here in near software, well, there's no rules really, but it's more like guidelines. And one of them, it's like, just let Skype do its thing. If you're not there, let it go to away or something. It's the best way to let people know what are you doing and if you're available or not. I want to ask you a question, Lissette. How long have you been working remotely?
I started in 2004.
2004, so over 10 years now.
Yeah,
Great.
It's been a while, huh? Yeah. I'm trying to that's
yeah, it's been a while. And Kim, I think you don't have a lot of time working remotely, right? Well, you don't per se work, but with a remote theme.
Well, I'm not a developer, but no, Nearsoft is pretty much my... Well, I did work... Okay, I'm back up. Nearsoft, I think, is my first experience with a company that's more formally remote. Prior to this, I mean, I have always worked with companies in Mexico that have U.S. clients, so I've always had to be in touch with people and clients and even coworkers on the other side of the border. But on a larger scale, definitely Nearsoft is my first experience with that. But I think remote working, touching back on that, I mean, it's software tech industry is more common, I suppose. But I mean, anywhere, manufacturing, I think, is probably another big one where you actually end up having to work a lot remotely.
And that's another difference. What you mentioned, Kim. It's different when your core team it's working remotely, and sometimes you have your core team here, but you have clients in other cities or in other countries, and that also ask for a collaboration,
Hmm.
for a collaboration aspect, I
Yeah,
guess.
and I think that's something that can overflow. That it's not just about who's underneath the said company banner. It can be extended out onto who you work with as clients as well. Even more ideal, I think.
Well, and
I
actually,
have
what
a
I
question
always,
for Lissette.
oh, sorry. Yep.
No,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Lissette. I was just before I forget. It was real quick. Just a quick question. You were mentioning that going back to the banking industry is jumping into this remote work scenario ever increasingly, right? So my question to you is: in industries that are sensitive to security issues like banking, like finances, what is your from your standpoint? What sort of considerations are required in order to make remote work even more present in these types of industries, or let me put it this way: what do you think that could be the stumbling blocks for remote work in these types of industries, and how can they be overcome?
Well, security is probably the number one thing that comes up in these industry when I talk. And banks are very limited in the tools that they allow their employees to use. And part of the problem, I think, is part of the problem is security, and they actually have these rules in place for a reason. It's really important. The other part of the problem in some of these scenarios is that the IT departments have gotten a little bit lazy, or they're bombarded by requests for use of new tools, so they'll just deny the use of any tools. And so I always tell people, push back on the IT departments a little bit, because often they don't know some of these new tools that are available. They may not have heard of Zoom or the Kubi or Sokoko, which have perfectly great security protocols in place for banks to use, but the IT departments don't even want to look at them because it's a new tool, it's going to be a headache. And I think if you want your employees to work remotely, you need to give them the proper tools in order to do so. You can't bind their hands, not allow them to use any video at all, and say, oh, work just as efficiently as you are in the office, figure it out. I don't know what you're going to do, but you can't do that. You have to give them the proper set of tools in order to be able to work this way.
Okay.
So I
Well,
always say push back a little, push back. There are limitations to what they can use, but the
Hmm.
Okay.
world is opening up a lot, and they really should check out. They should reevaluate.
Excellent.
Nice.
Thank you, Lisette. And I understand that this is a totally different subject. I understand you produce a podcast where you interview cool people, right? So I'd like to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about what um, who has been the like one of the most interesting characters or really awesome people that you have talked to, and what have they shared with you in these podcasts? And then you can tell us about the podcast as well.
Oh man. So on the podcast, you can find everything at Collaboration Superpowers. All the podcasts are there and online.
Mhm. Okay.
And some of my favorite, one of my favorites, of course, was Yegor Bugayenko. Definitely listen to that one because he
Okay.
has some interesting stuff. Other people that I've interviewed that are interesting and worth listening to is I interviewed NASA. So I
Okay.
got to talk to them about, well, because they totally work remotely, right? They have people on the International Space
Oh
Station.
yeah.
And I tried to get them to tell me what's the time zone difference between Mars and Earth, but he got distracted in his answer and he went off and told me that the Mars rover, like it takes 15 minutes to get the signal from Earth to Mars in order to make a change to the rover for where it's driving. So you can imagine the time zone differences, the time lag is
Of
different.
course.
But we
Wow.
are what he did say, which was awesome, was he said we are going to be a spacefaring civilization in our lifetimes. We are going to be out there colonizing other planets in our lifetime, and that we really should start thinking about how are we going to work together when somebody's on Mars and somebody's here? How are we going to look at that? So that's a great interview to talk to.
Cool.
And really, and I also, another one that I liked was I just interviewed a personal trainer who does personal fitness training via Skype. So he has a whole bunch of clients and he gives them, you have to buy a certain number of exercise tools like the ball and some weights or a kettlebell or something, and he trains you over Skype. So, I mean, there's no excuse now not to go to the gym anymore. So that I didn't like that so much.
Uh-huh.
so,
In that sense, Lisette, do you think there's like a do you think there could be a limit to these digital virtual scenarios. I mean, because let me give you an example. Whenever I think of I'd like to have a cup of coffee with a friend, for example. Okay, yeah, of course we can sit on Skype and do it just like this, but there's really not a substitute for like one-on-one real interaction live in person. So where's the is there a limit to this, or is it limitless from your standpoint, or is that where we're going to be in 50 years, 100 years from now? Is everything going to be virtual, and we're going to be we're not? It's having a cup of coffee like this one, sitting with someone in person over the table, across the table. It's not. It's even going to be inconceivable. So, what are the limits to this
I mean, we're
from
human,
your
right?
standpoint?
And being together in person as humans, there is nothing that substitutes that. There's nothing. I mean, hanging out in a bar together with your best friend, having a beer, there's nothing that you can do online that's going to feel like that.
Yeah.
But I do think that, I'm subscribed to a number of virtual reality podcasts. And in those podcasts, you can start to simulate what it's like. What I hear is you can, with virtual reality, start to simulate what it's like to sit next to somebody in a room, and you can actually touch them. They have a way of actually feeling, something. They're feeling a person. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I think with technology, we're going to get, they have, I think it's called a Frebel, where you could actually squeeze somebody's hands. You have a device that you squeeze, and when you squeeze it, it squeezes the other person's hand remotely. And so you can actually, like hold somebody's hand and squeeze them while you're talking to them. And these technologies are just going to get more and more and more robust. Nothing will replace the human connection, but we're going to get really weirdly close. Weirdly close. My interest is, sorry.
That was my take too. I think there's my perspective, and I'm by no means do I have as much experience in this as you do, but it's like I would say it is limitless, but it's never going to be a replacement.
Right. My interest in all of this is not should we or should we not work remotely, because that's such an individual choice. Some companies should not work remotely. Some people should not work remotely. I mean, it's really a choice. But what I like is having the option. And also the question is, what if we can't work together in the same room? What if it's not possible? Then what do we do? And that's, I think, where where it gets interesting.
And to know how. So I understand you actually have two other components of what's important. We've got
in terms of my presentation, yeah. We may not get all the way through it, but I'll keep going with some of the tips.
There you go.
Oh, here's one of my tips is creating a holiday calendar. So if you're working on a team that has multinational team members, create a holiday calendar together, because that's one way of learning about culture, because holidays are all about culture. It's all about food, tradition, rituals, things that we do. So not only with a calendar do you know when people are working and not working, but you also get a chance to learn a little bit about their culture and some of the holidays that they do. So that was one of the other tips. Okay, but the third component is having pain-free online meetings, because as we know, online, I think we've all seen the video conference call in real life, and they are really mostly horrible, but there's a few things that we can do to make them good. They are really mostly horrible, right? I mean, an online meeting, nobody wants to do it, but here are some of the ways to make it better. One is minimize your background noise, because if we want to have high bandwidth conversations, and you have one person calling in from the car, another person talking from the coffee shop, somebody's bird is chirping, or the dog is barking, or their children are screaming, it all gets in the way of having a good conversation. So whatever we can do, the noise canceling headsets, being in a quiet environment, muting ourselves when we're not speaking. I can show off my mute card. These are all the things that we can do to create a high bandwidth environment, and I think that's important to do. So it's an easy one. That's an easy one, but it doesn't get done. The other is arriving early and testing your equipment. When we work together in an office, you can slide in at the last minute, sit down, and be fully present in the meeting. If you do that in an online call, if you slide in at the last minute, chances are your headset's not going to work, or you're going to have to reboot your computer, or something's different. So you can't just slide in at the last minute. That's something that does not translate from the real world into the virtual world. What it does allow you to do, though, is it allows you to build in some personal time before the meeting starts. So one of the teams that I worked on, they had a thing where anybody who was around could show up 5-10 minutes before the meeting started if you want to have that chit chat. So you build in that personal time before the meeting starts, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then whoever wants to start the meeting on time, you just show up when the meeting starts, and then you can get on with
Mhm.
the meeting. But that's one way of building in a little bit of camaraderie into your day.
Yeah, it's connecting the two.
Yeah, it makes it easy. I mean, you're getting ready for the meeting anyway, right? So if you're early in testing your equipment, you could hang out and talk to your colleagues and see what they did over the weekend. That's always nice. One thing that really helps online meetings is, you've always got some people that dominate the conversation, like me, because I get overly excited, and then some people that really like to sit back and just kind of watch and relax and disengage. And what science found is if you have everybody speak once before the meeting starts, they're more likely to speak up again. So if you start your meeting with an icebreaker question, a really quick one, like this question here was, take a picture of what you're wearing right now. So it's take a picture of your feet and show us what your shoes are. So for me, I live in these slippers, so I'm always in my slippers. And my colleague, Louise, she's in Spain, and so she's always in her flip-flops. But anyway, so it's just a fun question. It takes really quick. You get to know a little bit about the person. Like I always think of Louise in her flip-flops now. I know, you kind of, it's not just Bob from engineering. It's Bob from engineering who likes green, who takes his kids canoeing on the weekends, and he loves to go to the Bahamas on vacation. With a quick icebreaker question, not only do you get everybody speaking, but you also learn a little bit about them. So that's one of my online meeting tips. And
I'm sorry, with the icebreaker, how often? What would be the How often do you do that? Like, is it something that if you do it every meeting, like on a daily meeting, does it get kind of old and silly? Would it be more
well,
like a
yeah,
once a week kind of thing, or?
for a team that works together all the time, that doesn't really make sense. But
Mhm.
for a team that doesn't, if you're just meeting once a week, definitely do an icebreaker question. Definitely. If you're doing it every day, I mean, you're probably doing a daily stand-up. It's not really necessary, but
Right.
yeah,
Cool. Or at least if there's like a new team member, for example, that'd be a
exactly,
really good thing.
exactly. To sort of get them integrated, and it's a great way to learn about each other. Plus, it's fun. It doesn't, it can just be as simple as what's your favorite food, what's your favorite color, something quick, because
Uh-huh.
you're there for a meeting, right? So you don't want to
Right,
take
right.
up all the time for that. But
Real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no
we're
worries.
we're approaching the final 10 minutes of. Unfortunately, it went out. It went by like this.
So fast.
But yeah, it was. We're having a blast here, but we're approaching the final minutes of today's talk. So I'd like to encourage our viewers to send us your questions, if any, to at dojolive.com on Twitter. And also, Luis and Kim, if you have any other questions, now's the time, and then we can pass on the mic to Lissette for some final words of wisdom.
I
So
just
thank
want to
you.
listen to what she has to tell us.
Go ahead.
Well, I do have one specific question. Well, it's a set of a specific question, but because as you can see right behind me, I have our own advertising. We build a tool. We're basically trying to build tools for remote agile teams. So we have a tool for estimations where you can use Hangouts and play Scrum Poker there. And then we have this one, which is for doing retrospectives. And I know that you have a post in your blog about retrospectives. So my question would be, what would make a tool for collaboration? What would make it good? What do I need to look for to say, okay, this is a good tool, this helps me, or it doesn't do anything for me?
I mean, for a good tool, it has to be very simple and easy to use, and it has to be something that your whole team is going to use. Because if you have the perfect tool but nobody uses it, it's not the perfect tool. So yeah, one example I like to give is I'm a huge wiki fan,
Hmm.
and I set up this whole wiki system. It had like a table of contents, it linked to everything. It was really beautiful, and nobody used it.
Yeah.
And so it was the perfect tool. It did everything everybody wanted, but nobody used it. So we went to something else. We went to Google Drive. I mean, of all horrible things. But everybody used it. So that's even though it's a lesser tool, it was a much better system. So it should be really easy to use, and you have to get everybody to use it.
Cool.
So
And then, well, no, I think that's answers my question. Yeah, it definitely needs to be something very easy. And in the case of retrospectives, well, what we try to do was something that engaged with the user and made the way for meaningful conversations, because in retrospectives what you're trying to do is improve your team, right? It's not, and not only your technical stuff but your people issues. You want to discover those and how to work better. So we found out that a tool that routes the conversation or keeps it in topic, it's pretty helpful.
Yeah, indeed. And if, for another online retrospectives tool, definitely check out Retrium, retrium.com. That is a fabulous online retrospectives tool. There's another one too called Scatterspoke, but I've not used that one, so I'm not sure. But yeah.
Yeah, there's several in the market. Yeah, there's several.
Yeah. So I'd love to see your tool when you guys.
Yeah, ours. We'll share it with you. Ours is specific for Atlassian right now. It's an add-on for
Brilliant.
Atlassian, so it's directed mostly for developers. But now, any other team in any other industry are using Atlassian, and they are starting to work this way. They are doing retrospectives. They are using agile methodologies, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah,
totally.
that was the only thing I wanted to comment, and I'm interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, I would say don't let the tools get in the way, because tools can really get in the way. And once they're getting in the way, scrap them, because you can do so many things. I mean, I had a team that they had, it was an agile team, and they were trying to figure a way to sync their individual Scrum boards. And what they ended up doing was they just took a picture of it every day. And then that's how they synced it. So every morning they would send each other the picture, and then each team would move their own sticky notes, because the virtual tool just wasn't working for them for some reason.
Yeah.
So go lo-fi, it's also fine, but don't let the tool get in the way of good collaboration. That's for sure.
For sure, yeah. I have an example of that. It's not really a tool for collaborations, but we have our own library here at the company. So we kind of felt that we needed a way to have control of who's got what book and where is it. So we're starting to work in this great framework, this great tool and application where you can do it with a QR code and everything. And at the end, we found out that just a piece of paper in there does the trick.
Totally.
So yeah, I get the point that sometimes you try to overdo it, and it's not necessary.
Plus, people get tool overload.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like all of a sudden you've got like 800 tools and 800 passwords, and so yeah, it's hard to track after a while, especially if you're a tool junkie. So yeah.
Right.
Tool junkie.
So,
I like that.
Tool junkie. Yeah. So on the screen, I was going to say, for people like with a remote team, you can't always be in every meeting because time zones, or you're just trying to coordinate too many things. So what I recommend is recording your meetings, which sounds, I mean, if online meetings weren't bad enough, watching a recording of an online meeting just sounds like the worst, right? So, but the weird thing is that when you're watching the meeting, you feel like you're there, because you can hear the conversation, you get to see how things went, so you don't even just need a summary. And your teammates can also leave little Easter eggs for you in the meeting. Like as they're talking and you're not there, they could be like, hey, Lissette, if you're watching, make sure you do X.
Oh, there you go.
So it can be a great way of communicating. So if you're, with a remote, you can't record your in-person meetings, but on a remote team, this is where you have the advantage. You can actually record your remote meetings. It's so easy to do. Just record and upload, and there you have it. So it's a great way of keeping track. Also helps build the team.
Yeah, and a point of reference for the past. Who said that? What? When? What did we say we're going to do?
Exactly. How did that come about? Yeah, exactly. And here's the unstructured time that we discussed. And this is a couple of my colleagues, and they're having lunch together. And they just had virtual lunch every week. So that's Laura with her salad and Gretchen with her smoothie. And they would meet every week and just have lunch together. And the Happy Melly team actually went so far as we had a virtual dance party together. And Jen would DJ, and the rest of us just got up and boogied for a couple minutes. And that's how we took a break halfway through one of our really long meetings, as we just danced.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's definitely for more tight-knit teams.
Yeah, it's a little, I must say, even I thought it was weird at first, and then I got totally into it. So now we have regular virtual dance parties. But, these are the things, you have to be a little bit creative, and it's going to feel weird. In fact, the the Wall Street Journal did a story about our virtual holiday party that we had for Happy Melly. And the article came out, and they said, oh, what's worse than a real office party? A virtual office party. How sad. These people were so sad. And I was like, were they at the same party I was at? Because I had a great time. I totally had a good time. Like, we had drinks, we did a virtual icebreaker, we shared stories, we did like, what did we like about 2016? What did we not like? And I just really was like, were we at the same party? Maybe the naysayers, right? But I don't know, be creative. These things are super fun. It really builds the team.
Very fun. I like that idea of just, throw caution to the wind and
try stuff. try stuff and iterate from there.
Innovate,
So this was my screen to remind people. So I created this set of cards called Supercards, and they're just visual indications of, like, this one is "you're on mute." That's the most popular one. Or there's things like "I can't hear you," or "try to reboot." This isn't, try to reboot. So there's all these cards that when we use video, you have all these visual indications. So what I wanted to do for those who are watching Dojo Live, I've created a Supercard sampler. So it's a PDF, and you can download the 8 most popular Supercards to use in your virtual meetings. So we'll put that in the show notes after the show.
Great.
And maybe, I know there's one more section, but we're not going to have time. So this might be a great place to end.
Okay. Well,
Alright,
you can at least tell us the title of the next section, so where people can go to find.
Indeed.
And
so the title is "Giving and Receiving Feedback," and feedback on remote teams is critical. You are all familiar with the Agile world, so I would say at the very minimum, you need to have regular retrospectives, but I think most Agile teams are doing that. But remote teams really, really have those retrospectives, and find some way of giving 360-degree team feedback. So it's not just feedback coming from the managers to the employees, but it's your feedback coming from your teammates about how you are to work with as a teammate. Are you reliable? Are you responsive? Are you there when I need you? These kind of things need to be put in place, because otherwise we don't get enough of that feedback. And then the other portion of that is appreciation. We have to show appreciation for each other. And I think even in any company that I worked for where we were co-located, that totally didn't happen enough. I mean, people just don't say thank you, and they don't show appreciation enough. And on remote teams, it happens even less. And that's where we really need to do it. And it's so easy. I mean, you can send a pizza anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Right? So just send, like, if somebody's working really late on a project that you're working on, send them a pizza. Like, how fun is that? Or, they have these monthly beer of the month clubs. Like, if you know that they're a beer person, send them a gift certificate for a beer of the month club. Like, do something that says thanks. I think that's really important.
This actually makes a lot of sense, because that's like the main part of teamwork. It's continuous improvement, and it's a lot more difficult if you are working remotely.
Totally. So set up the feedback loop so that it's regular. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that I remember we had a speaker once last year, and one of the things that he did was he created a tool called Coffee Sender, and it was about that. It was about being able to the tool allows you to send just coffee. Just cup of coffee. I think it was Starbucks coffee,
like
whatever.
a $5 gift certificate or something.
Yeah, something along those lines. And you were able to do that, and just you can send it to anywhere and to anyone, anywhere. So it was a cool thing to do, because it helped you build that connection that is highly needed in these types of virtual settings.
Right. All right.
I just remember that.
We use, we're big fans of SevenKeys. I don't know if you've heard of SevenKeys at all. It helps us set up our objectives and our key results as a company, and then you load up your individual objectives and key results, which is really helpful. But there's also, which is really fun, is the recognition component.
Yeah.
And we're able to recognize each other based off of our established values. And it's really fun, because they send, like your email recognitions, and they notify you when someone's recognized you. And then they're kind of like this little like gamification, like badging element where so-and-so was the most recognized, near Softy of the month and whatever else. So it's a really easy way to also recognize your teammates.
Yeah, and all the recognitions are made public.
Yeah, awesome. Because it makes your day when somebody appreciates your work. It totally makes your day, even if they just say thank you. And what I'm showing on the screen, this is kudobox.co. You can send a kudo via Twitter publicly to anybody with a Twitter account. And this is what it looks like when they get it. And it's just like, thanks for staying late. Thanks for hosting this hangout.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, unfortunately we need to wrap up the session, so we're running out of time. But again, Kim, Luis, any final items that you might want to run by Lissette?
Well, I'm just wondering, Lissette, if people want to know more about you or your workshop or how to get a hold of you, how might they do that?
Collaborationsuperpowers.com. Everything is there. The workshop, the podcast, all the Supercards, everything is there. The book, book is coming out very soon.
We're excited to hear it. All right, and these workshops are virtual, I'm assuming, and also in person.
Yeah, I do recommend taking them online, because if you want to learn how to work online, you should do it online. And in
Yeah.
these workshops, you get to use all of these tools. You get to teleport, you get to try the virtual office, you get to, push all the buttons. You can take it in person. A lot of companies are still too weirded out about doing it online, so they fly me to exotic places to give the workshop in person. Also fine, but really try an online workshop. They're super fun, they're really engaging, and they're not a webinar, they're interactive.
Did that cut out for everyone, or is that just me?
That was just you.
Oh, okay, just checking.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, Lissette, the only thing left for me to do is simply pronounce a big thank you for having agreed to be here with us today in Dojo Live in our second edition of the year. And I think we had a blast. I did, and I'm sure Louise and Kim did as well, and most likely the audience did as well. So,
Yes.
absolutely. So now we have you on collaborationsuperpowers.com, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. Excellent. So there you have it, folks. And again, thank you so much, Lissette, for
Thank you
being
guys.
here.
It was
Yeah,
awesome.
There you go.
and it was awesome. Exactly. There you have it. Alrighty then. Well, Lissette, it was really, really good to have you here. So
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes, we learned
Thanks
a
a lot
lot.
You
for
guys
agreeing.
online.
Yes, for sure.
absolutely. Thank you all. You have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Great. Goodbye, Lissette.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.